Welcome to another episode of Made for Philly. I am Bryce Olinsky alongside Matt Minton. We are presented by Godzilla Media, and welcome to the playoff edition of Made for Philly. The Eagles are officially in the playoffs. They officially know who they're playing. We enjoyed the backups getting shellacked by the Cowboys last week, but that's not what we're here to talk about, Matt. The Birds are flying south. They face the defending Super Bowl champions, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and an old friend, Tom Brady, in the first round of the playoffs as the 7 seed. The Eagles have a tough run. We're not going to sugarcoat it. They open up by playing the defending Super Bowl champs, and if they are so lucky, which we'll break this all down here in a little bit, if they are so lucky to move on in the playoffs, they face the number 1 seed Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field in the second round. So the Eagles, with Jalen Hurts and a lot of these guys' first taste of the playoffs, it's going to be one hell of a run, one hell of a ride for this team. Nick Sirianni and this Eagles team, though, Matt, I mean, they're getting hot at the right time. They finished the year 7-2. I'm not counting the third loss, the final loss of the year, because it was all the backups, and half those players aren't even going to see the field anyway. So I'm not counting it. They finished the year 7-2, look pretty good. We're running the ball really well, and they have to take that now down to Tampa Bay and face Tom Brady.
Yeah, they definitely. I'll start with what you said, getting hot at the right time, because make no mistake, the Eagles are a lot better than what their record suggests, given the way they finished the season, even with that BS Dallas game with all the starters resting. But I don't want to say confident, but sneaky like. I feel sneakily good about their odds right now. Granted, Tom Brady is Tom Brady, and I'm sure he is still feeling a little bit petty about the Super Bowl. But again, I like their odds going in. But would I be surprised if they get eliminated? No, not necessarily. But I think we need to take it in for a moment and just realize how exciting it is that they already got here. What was clearly supposed to be a rebuild, hit the reset button. Here they are competing for a chance to go to the Super Bowl in the playoffs with 3 first-round picks coming up. So the Eagles might be in the best position out of any team in the postseason right now, and you look at next year as well.
Yeah, when you look at the outlook, and we are going to touch on some of the picks that are official after we break down this Buccaneers game, but you look at this Eagles team coming in, and we've had the conversation. We had the conversation last week, and we've had the conversation going into the year. Like, the expectations for this Eagles team, a lot of people were split. Like, we knew there was talent on this team, but we also sat there and listened to Jeffrey Lurie say this is a transition year. And when your owner usually goes up and says this is a transition year, the expectations aren't very high. Now in Philly, I think the expectations are always high. We always expect the Eagles to be in the playoffs because that's what we do. But with that being said, rookie head coach Jalen Hurts, you don't really know what he is. You don't really know about the depth of this football team. You have some veterans. The mixture of this locker room, you didn't really know how it was going to go. You have veterans that were still on the Super Bowl team, and you have some veterans that came from other teams via free agency, and you have some young blood that hasn't really tasted the playoffs yet, including, guys like Jalen Hurts and obviously Devontae Smith, Jalen Reagor, Dallas Goddard has been here for some playoff runs, but not too many. But this is a team that start off really bad. Obviously, we dissected that for countless times on this show throughout the year. Start 2-5. Nick Sirianni had the flower comment, and this team turned a complete 180. Started running the football as well as anybody. The best team in the league, by the way, at running the football this season. And they obviously flipped it around into a playoff berth after a season of shuffling their offensive line because of injuries, COVID-19, other reasons. The Eagles enter the playoffs with a pretty full deck there. They have a strong offensive line, probably the best offensive line in football. Jalen Hurts makes the first playoff start. But he's been really fun to watch this year, and this team has been really fun to watch down the second stretch, and that leads us to this Tampa Bay matchup. And obviously, the Eagles Super Bowl odds, if you're a betting man, they're very high. They're plus 6,000 to win the Super Bowl. ESPN's FPI gives them I put $20 down on the Birds to win the Super Bowl just because.
I'm curious. Just to pay out what?
Let me pull it up here. Let me pull it up per FanDuel.
6,000. I mean,
I don't know if I
consider
got it
myself
at
a
plus.
betting man, but that's a little bit tempting, regardless.
I don't think I took Eagles money line this weekend too because
Okay.
it was a joke. Let me pull it up here. Let me pull up my bets because this weekend, as everybody knows, I'm up in New York. For those that don't know, gambling just became legal here in New York last weekend. So I could finally I didn't need a bookie anymore for the first time ever. I took Eagles. When I took them, they were plus 5,000. $5 wager to pay out $255.
It's pretty good. It's pretty
Good.
reasonable. Yeah.
Pretty good. And then I did a money line plus 340, 15 to win 66 at the Eagles outright beat the Bucs. So let's get to it. Right? I mean, obviously nobody's giving this Eagles team a chance. They have the longest odds of any team in the playoff field this year. Continuously getting the disrespect. They're 9-8. Some people don't believe because they only beat one team with a winning record, that would be the Saints, that this team has it to really make a solid run. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball because I think that's going to be, and we'll go offense and then defense on both sides. Let's start with the offense. And the big reason why this Eagles team has been so successful and the reason this Eagles team really turned this season around is this rushing attack. The Buccaneers had the best run defense in the NFL in the past 2 years leading into this year. That's why, Todd Bowles is such a popular head coaching candidate right now because this defense has been so dominant. And what Bowles wants to do defensively is shut down the run, make opposing offenses one-dimensional, more predictable, and easier to defend. A lot of good defensive coordinators find a way to do that. But it fell off in 2021. In the Eagles Week 6 matchup, and this is where, the Eagles played the Bucs earlier on in the year, but I don't even know if we can really take anything away from that because these two teams are entirely different. The Eagles ran the ball 8 times against the Buccaneers back in Week 6. That's not what the Eagles run 8 times a drive now. In the first half, Eagles running backs combined for 1 rushing attempt in that game. They essentially gave the Buccaneers exactly what they wanted, which was a one-dimensional, predictable offense. Jalen Hurts was asked to throw the ball 53 times. I mean, we've had this conversation even with Carson Wentz when Carson Wentz was here. You don't want a quarterback throwing the ball 53 times. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady. That's just not a successful game plan. At this point in the season, though, Matt, the Eagles were a finesse offense through no fault of the players. They were unable to be physical. The play callers simply opted not to run the ball almost at all. I mean, this was that stretch, if you remember. They weren't throwing it at all. I mean, running it at all. I mean, they just refused to do it. Defenses prey on game plans like that by completely ignoring the run. Tampa was in attack mode all night, and they tossed Jalen around like a dog toy and really forced the Eagles out of their game plan. They eventually started to run the ball late, and they had some success with it. If you remember, Miles Sanders had some nice runs. They were able to punch the ball in with Jalen. Sirianni and this Eagles offense have come a long way since Week 6, and their offensive approach is completely different. They are now run heavy, and the Eagles defense really cannot sit there and, shut down the run victory by just showing up on Sunday. Miles Sanders was healthy. Kenny Gainwell was a 2. Boston Scott didn't have a rushing attempt yet back in Week 6. Jordan Howard was still on the practice squad. And obviously a lot has changed at this point. The Eagles really need at least one of Miles Sanders or Jordan Howard to be close to 100% in this game. Howard is back, obviously. Miles Sanders is practicing. He was limited, but he's expected to be back near full strength. The positional group probably benefited the most from the team resting starters Week 18, and the running backs are going to play a crucial role. And if the Eagles have a chance to win this game, they're going to be a big reason why.
Yeah, I agree. And I need a 30 for 30, by the way, on how a group of angry fans literally bullied a franchise and coaching staff into becoming one of the best rushing teams.
Only in Philadelphia, my friend. Only in Philadelphia.
But yeah, like you said, how the identity really for both teams right now is just so different compared to where was they playing the regular season? Like I probably can't make an accurate prediction based off of just the first game alone. And once again, like I like the Eagles' odds where now you see how much they run the drive. And granted, Tampa Bay's defense is scary, but it does seem like it has fallen off a little bit towards the end of the season. They're human. They're showing that they're human. So if there's a time for the Eagles to really or any team to really exploit this Tampa Bay defense, it's now. And I think the Eagles are the team to do it. They got the best rushing O-line in football. Hopefully a hot Miles Sanders returning, and I like their chances.
You brought it up, right? The Eagles' offensive line, it is unbelievable. But guess what? Typically the strength of Tampa's defense is that defensive line: Vita Vea, Dominican Sue. The Bucs run. Their run defense, I should say, starts up front in the middle of the line with Vea and Sue.
Mm-hmm.
Big, powerful, nasty guys. The Bucs showed how valuable Vea is in their defensive scheme. They locked him up just recently to a 4-year, $73 million deal. This is a team that predicates its success on stopping the run. Vea only has 11.5 sacks in 4 seasons. They're not paying him because he's an elite pass rusher. Him and Sue stuff up that offensive front. And, Tampa's edge rushers get after it. The trio of Kelsey, Landon Dickerson, Nate Herbig need to match the physicality of Vea and Sue early and set the tone, and not have the tone set on them, because that could get the Eagles out of their game plan. And once the Eagles get away from that game plan, everything's going to be a domino effect against a team like Tampa Bay. You have to be mistake-free and lean on your strengths, which is this offensive line and run game. You look at Jordan Mailata with Shaquille Barrett out there. Like I said, the Bucs have a really good trio of edge rushers between Barrett, JPP, and Joe Tyrone Shonika. But Barrett is the clear star of the group. And in 3 years, since the Bucs signed him in 2019, he has 37.5 sacks.
That's a lot.
At 11 forced fumbles. That's a lot. He also had 4 sacks in 4 games during Tampa's playoff run last year. So he turned it up come playoff time. Barrett rushes from both sides, but his style really is going to be problematic for Jordan Mailata rather than Lane Johnson. When I say that, while Mailata is that brick wall against power rushers, he can be susceptible to the speed rushers with those dip moves.
Mm-hmm.
I would expect the Bucs to get Barrett matched up on Mailata in obvious passing situations, and this is going to be one of Mailata's toughest tests yet. I like I said, I'm not really worried about Lane Johnson, nor am I overly too concerned about Mailata, but that's a matchup you have to keep an eye on.
It might be the toughest test he's faced so far in his career when you look at the atmosphere and who he's going up against. But I'm excited to see him in that situation. Really, this is just such an added bonus for this Eagles team as a whole to see all these young guys in what was an intended rebuilding year getting playoff experience and a possible playoff run, to have that under his belt. For Sirianni, by the way, the only rookie coach to lead his team to the playoffs. Another thing to think about come Coach of the Year voting. Mm-hmm. So really, not only do I like the Eagles' odds, it's a good opportunity to see how valuable this is for this franchise. Granted, it's always valuable when you go to the playoffs, but to go to
absolutely.
The playoffs when you're in a clear rebuilding situation and have essentially had no idea where this franchise was going coming into the season. So it really is the best of both worlds. I don't want to say it's like, I can watch the playoffs stress-free, but I can watch knowing that it's an added bonus because this team, according to everybody outside, maybe a few Philly fans, wasn't supposed to be here. And it would be pretty storybook to spoil the defending Super Bowl champs in that situation.
Well, and when you put it that way, they're almost playing with house money, right? Nobody expected this team. The expectations weren't there. Nobody expected them to be there. And this Eagles team's out to prove that they belong and that they are a team on the rise again. And I think this year has already proven that, but to make some noise in the playoffs, that would be huge. And you look at, this offense, Jalen Hurts, what he has done over the past couple of months has been absolutely tremendous and fun to watch. They're going to need Jalen in this game. They're going to need big game Jalen. The Eagles are not going to win this game without Jalen contributing and throwing the football. As much as it's nice to run the ball, Jalen's got to make some throws. And we're going to get to it, but there's the GOAT on the other side of the football. Mm-hmm. So, you're going to have to put points up in bunches. And when I look at, obviously, the running attack, we talked about the defensive line. But Jalen's going to have to find those guys that he trusts, and that's the Dallas Goddard and Devontae Smith. When I look at Goddard, there's a mismatch there. There's a mismatch that Dallas Goddard can exploit this Tampa Bay defense because this linebacking crew is decimated with injury. Now, they might get Lavonte David back this week, but that's kind of to be determined. He's been limited. Goddard, if you remember, did not play against Tampa in week 6 because he had COVID. Ertz was still on the team, 4 catches, 29 yards, and a touchdown. Ertz could have had more. Hurts missed him early on the sideline throw. Should have been completed. That's neither here nor there at this point. The Eagles missed Goddard in that game, and as starting linebacker, Lavonte David, he was out. And Antoine Winfield Jr. was out. Winfield will be there on Sunday, but like I said, David could be out once again. He has that foot injury. They're not sure if he's going to be able to go. I would expect him to go, but even if he does go, how healthy is he really? And when you look at a guy like Dallas Goddard, that to me is a mismatch. I mean, he's been on injured reserve. He's eligible to come off it. They made him eligible today, but he can't be near 100%. He's the best coverage linebacker that Tampa has. So when I'm looking at their best coverage linebacker, not 100%, looking at Dallas Goddard and how much he has blossomed and how involved he has been in the offense since Ertz got traded, he should be able to take advantage of matchups against potentially hobbled Lavonte David, whether it's him, backup Kevin Minter, or a much smaller 6-foot Devin White. Like, this is a guy that should absolutely go off this weekend.
Mm-hmm. I think Dallas is definitely the X factor because, one, when you also factor in Tampa Bay's outside rushing ability, you're going to want Jalen Hurts to find that check down, safe go-to option guy. And I think in this situation, it's going to be Dallas Goddard when you look at the role that he necessarily didn't have in the Week 6 game. And now you're bringing him back in, who was probably the yardage might not show, but he was probably the Eagles' most dangerous weapon this year. Did you lead the team in receiving, or was it Smith who led the team in receiving?
No, Devontae did. Yeah,
okay.
Devontae did.
But either way, I think Dallas
Goddard was second. Goddard was second.
I think he's the most dangerous option when you look at what he's capable of and what the Tampa Bay defense is looking like right now, which is without their star linebacker, or at least not at 100%. So this could be a very important game for Dallas and Jalen to see how that chemistry works, especially when you're looking at close drag or slant routes with the defense coming at you from both sides.
Yeah, and I look at Goddard, and another guy I look at is Devontae Smith, right? And obviously, Hurts doesn't have many options that he trusts. I mean, you look at the target share, nobody was close to Devontae Smith. He had 104 targets. The next closest was Goddard with 76. The next closest receiver to Devontae Smith was Kes Watkins at 62. Mm-hmm. So that kind of shows you where Hurts really trusts. It's Devontae Smith, Goddard, and then as we all know, it's a significant drop-off. Like, we like Kes Watkins, but let's be honest. There's a big drop-off there from wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2. During the regular season, if you all remember, Sirianni tried to scheme up touches for Jalen Reagor and Kes Watkins on occasion to keep them involved. Jalen Reagor's been an absolute disaster. Kes Watkins is what he is. He's a 6th-round project. I mean, he shows spurts at times, but you know what? I mean, he can't be trusted as a wide receiver too. Partly as a result of that, Devontae Smith only averaged 6 targets per game. The top 5 most targeted players during the regular season: Smith, Goddard, Watkins, Reagor. Kenny Gainwell was 5th in targets in the passing game. Yeah, that's how bad the depth is when it comes to passing targets for Jalen Hurts. Smith and Goddard combined for 38.4% of the team's targets, and in the playoffs, they need to count, in my opinion, for something closer to 60% or more. Enough is enough. Like, Jalen Reagor don't got it. Kes Watkins is in for a flash play here and there at best. You're in the playoffs now. You give your best players more opportunities when it matters. The Eagles were committed to taking deep shots against the Bucs in Week 6, and they were actually able to draw a couple long pass interference calls that eventually led to scores. It's noteworthy to me that Tampa started an over-the-hill Richard Sherman in Week 6 due to injuries, but I can't imagine that the Eagles' game plan will be to chuck it down the field this time around, considering they're completely 2 totally different teams in my eyes than they were in Week 6. The Bucs have a decent trio of corners. Jamel Dean, Carlton Davis, and Sean Murphy Bunting. Davis and Murphy Bunting are the starters outside, with Murphy Bunting having extra responsibility on his plate as he moves inside to the slot in nickel, with Dean playing on the outside. It's solid. It's not sexy. But if Smith had Jalen Ramsey following him all over the field, then sure, you need your other receivers to step up. But none of those guys that I just named, unless they're doubling him or some other drastic measure, feed Devontae Smith. Mm-hmm. Feed him. He needs to have double-digit targets. Both he and Dallas Goddard, to my point earlier, they need to combine for 60% or more of the target share. Let these guys eat. The Eagles are the Eagles are 8-point underdogs. We just talked about it. They're not expected to win this game. They should at least allow their best players to try and make plays. Don't go, if you're Nick Sirianni, don't go down there and have the game planned. Let the game play out. Say you lose. You're looking back at that, at that game as you're coming back to Philly on the plane and saying, yeah, maybe we should have thrown it more to Devontae. What else are you going to do, and what do you have to lose? Give Goddard and Devontae Smith all the targets that they can handle.
Yeah, it's as simple as it gets. Find your best playmaker and put the ball in their hands and let them do the rest. And while they need to go the run game as much as they can to win this game, if they're going to be going into the pass game, one thing I'll say, end the gadget plays for Reagor. It doesn't work. These jet sweeps, these screen passes, these double underrounds, they don't work, Nick. They don't work. So scratch that out of your playbook and just go to what works, which is feeding your first-round receiver who just broke your rookie receiving yardage record.
And it sucks to see Reagor in such a bad place.
Mm-hmm. I want to root for him. I do. I want to see him succeed.
He's just not good. That's plain and simple. He's just not good. And when it comes to playoff time, I need to put all the weight on the guys that I can trust. Reagor's not one of them. I would almost be happier for Reagor to be a healthy scratch. One, it takes that gadget play that doesn't work out of the game. Two, you don't have him on special teams because I think Jared Huntley was better at returning kicks. And I think that's a big reason why they activated him. I think he's going to have that role on special teams. I think they liked what he showed. I just don't see a role for Reagor right now, especially in a game against Tampa. I don't see where he fits at all. I don't
either. It just really doesn't make sense.
No. So make him a healthy scratch. Put somebody in uniform that's actually going to make a contribution. It's shitty to say, but thank God J.J. Arcega-Whiteside's on IR, and we don't have to worry about that. Because, my Lord, I don't know how you dropped that ball, but I digress. Let's flip sides here. And obviously the elephant in the room is the fact that the Eagles face Tom Brady. Right? Mm-hmm. This is why the Buccaneers are the Buccaneers. The GOAT is on the other side. And look, the last time the Eagles faced Tom Brady, it went rather well in the playoffs. They won Super Bowl 52. However, this is a little worrisome because obviously the elephant in the room is the fact that Jonathan Gannon and this Eagles defense have not been very good against good/great quarterbacks this season. They've been pretty darn good against the bad ones, but they have yet to prove themselves against top-tier quarterback talent. Dak Prescott in week 3. 21 of 26, 238 yards, 3 touchdowns, 143 QBR rating. Week 4, Patrick Mahomes, 24 of 30, 80% completion percentage, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception, 131 quarterback rating. Week 6, Tom Brady, 34 for 42, 81% completion percentage for 2 touchdowns, an interception, 102 QBR rating. Week 7, Derek Carr, 31 34, 91.2%. You see kind of the theme here, right, Matt?
Oh, it's not good, yeah.
2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 113 QBR rating. And Herbert, 32 of 38, 84.2% completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and 123.2 QB rating.
Quarterbacks shouldn't be making the honor roll with their completion percentage. That's just not ideal.
No. Of that group, the Eagles actually did a decent job on Tom Brady in week 6. It looked early on like it was going to be a really ugly night. If you all remember that game back, it was a Thursday night game. Bucs had consecutive 75-yard touchdown drives on their first 2 possessions. And I remember sitting there and it'd be like, oh my God, this game's going to be done at halftime if it's not already over.
Mm-hmm.
But as the game progressed, like the defense did enough to force, they had 3 punts, a turnover on downs, the interception, a second interception that didn't count. The Eagles were down 28-7. So, I mean, it wasn't really, that impressive. So maybe they took their foot off the gas a little bit and played more conservatively. I don't know what it was. But if you'll know, it's been a while since the Eagles defense has faced a top-level quarterback, as I'm sure has been a significant talking point over the past couple of weeks here. Obviously, whether it be, Mike Glennon, Taylor Heineke, Garrett Gilbert, Zach Wilson, Jared Goff. I mean, the list goes on and on of mediocre quarterbacks that they've played. And as everyone is aware, Tom Brady is probably the best player in NFL history. Gannon will need an outstanding game plan if the Eagles are going to leave Brady, shaking his head and going home with the Eagles moving on. Because, I mean, if you play that conservative cover to soft coverage defense that you played the most of the first half of the year against good quarterbacks, Tom Brady's going to do whatever he wants. I don't care if Antonio Brown lost his marbles and quit on the team and Chris Godwin's out for the year. It's not going to matter. Me and you could have the success with Tom Brady throwing us the football if that's the defensive game plan. Quite
possibly. And I think the ideal game plan here is I feel like everybody tries to overcompensate and try to play excessive coverage when in reality that's what Brady thrives off of. If you're going to try to get to him, this defensive line needs to step up. They need to send the blitz. They need to throw Brady on his back multiple times this game. They need to sack him, hit him, get him rattled up, get him off his spot.
And there is absolutely no reason at all to be playing soft coverage when you have corners like Darius Slay, Avonte Maddox, and Steve Nelson. Yep. Absolutely zero reason for it. And that brings me to my next point, like the Eagles secondary versus the Bucs. I mean, let's be real, depleted wide receivers. A lot of people think of Brady at this stage of his career as a quarterback who can get the ball out quick, assassin the short to intermediate game. And yes, he can certainly beat you that way. However, the Bucs are far from a dink and dunk team when you actually look at it. And I was kind of surprised when I saw this. They pushed the ball down the field, in fact, led the NFL this season in pass plays over 20 yards with 76. That obviously more than the Raiders, more than the Rams, more than the Cowboys, more than the Bengals, the Vikings, all these teams with deep threat wide receivers. Buccaneers had more. It's no coincidence that 9 of those 10 teams that are with the Bucs and have thrown the football more down the field made the playoffs. The Buccaneers, though, have to figure it out to keep the big plays coming without Chris Godwin. As I mentioned, he tore his ACL. Antonio Brown released. Like I said, he lost his goddamn mind. And I mean, as an Eagles fan, thank God it's good timing. Mike Evans, he's playing and he's a huge target threat, but he's not 100%. He's been struggling with a little bit of a hamstring issue. I'm not so sure that he's really popping up on the injury report anymore, but it's something to monitor. He's been very, very good, but take that away. Like, I'm thinking you have Darius Slay on Mike Evans every single play of this game. Mm-hmm. Do not let Darius Slay on another wide receiver, because take away Mike Evans, Tyler Johnson is your next best wide receiver with 36 catches for 360 yards this year. Brashad Perryman, Scott Miller. These are the type of guys that are going to be playing alongside Mike Evans this year. Now, look, Brady is the best, really the best ever to do this, and he's done it time and time again. We saw it with the Patriots. He makes these no-name wide receivers look like, they're straight on their way to Canton. But at the same time, like, this is a little bit of a strength. I mean, with the good secondary play that the Eagles have had with Avonte Maddox and Steven Nelson outside Darius Slay, with these lower level wide receivers, they should be able to at least kind of shut down this passing attack.
They should be. It's because when you're taking away 2 of a quarterback's top 3 targets in such a short amount of time, ideally they're going to have to think outside the box, and especially when you have an all-pro corner in Darius Slay, Steven Nelson, who's looked serviceable, throughout the season, and debatably a top 5 slot cornerback in football right now, Devontae Maddox. You should just be able to rely on these guys to play press, man-to-man coverage, let them stick with their guy, hopefully win most of the battles, let the defensive line send an extra man if you have to. I know the Eagles don't blitz a whole lot, but send extra guys to pressure Brady and throw him on his back and get him on the ground and rattle him. It's their best chance to win this game.
I agree. I mean, look, Brady is not the most fleet of foot. We know this.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can get pressure on him and it comes down to that pass rush, absolutely. This could be a different talking point. Come next week, we could be talking about how the Eagles really forced Brady and the Bucs out of their game plan. Obviously, we talked about the wide receivers and the fact that they're without AB and they're without Godwin, but they do still have Rob Gronkowski. And even at this age, Gronkowski is having a heck of a year. Brady has predictably leaned more on his tight ends, mostly Gronk. 14 catches for 252 yards over the last 2 weeks for the Buccaneers. He can still play. He is still one of the best tight ends in all football. What makes him so difficult to defend is that he has played with Brady for what seems like a decade at this point. I'm pretty sure it pretty much is a decade at this point. And they know exactly what to expect from each other. And that's not something that you can game plan and script to defend. These two have a high level of adjustment. Two veterans make on the fly when they have as much familiarity as Brady and Gronk do. When you look at the linebackers that could be responsible for covering him, I look at TJ Edwards. You don't have Davion Taylor, but I'm not looking at Alex Singleton as the guy. TJ Edwards is going to have to keep an eye on guys like Gronk.
Mm-hmm. And Gronk is probably my biggest concern because I trust Darius Slade to at least contain Mike Evans. And the question is though, like if you're really sending all this pressure towards Brady, if you're relying on your corners to play man to man against these fourth and third string receivers, who's covering Gronk? Who's covering debatably a top 5, top 3 tight end in football? When you're looking at a position the Eagles just don't seem to value. I like TJ Edwards. He's a tough player. He runs field to field. He's a good athlete, but can he stick with a guy like Rob Gronkowski in coverage? Because I don't trust Alex Singleton to do it. I trust him more than Singleton or Davion Taylor, but it's not exactly saying much. So the biggest wild card here for the Eagles winning this game, in my opinion, is stopping Rob Gronkowski or even containing him. Like if you hold him out of the end zone, you hold him under 70 receiving yards, something to just keep him somewhat contained.
Matt, it's almost if you prioritize the linebacker position, maybe we wouldn't be so worried. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
The weapons just keep on coming, though, Matt. Running back, Leonard Fournette. This is another guy. Like, he's missed the past couple weeks. He will be back this week. Now, the rushing game is going to be interesting for Tampa because Ronald Jones might not play and Giovanni Bernard is still out. So they could be down to Leonard Fournette coming off an injury and Keyshawn Vaughn. But when you look at the week 6 matchup, Fournette got 28 touches. He had 22 carries for 81 yards and 2 touchdowns, 6 catches on 6 targets. They were mostly checkdowns for 46 yards, but the point is he was involved and he had a lot of success. The Eagles held him to 3.7 yards per carry, but they had a chance for those averages to be much lower. They missed close to double-digit tackles on Leonard Fournette in that game. And the Eagles' run defense actually, as a whole, the first half had been really disappointing. They couldn't stop a nosebleed. They ended up finishing 9th in run defense. They were much better in November and December than they were September and October. The Eagles allowed at least 100 yards on the ground in each of their first 7 games. And that was, when they were 2-5, you and I sitting here talking about where is this defensive line? Where is this Eagles defense that has always for years been so good against the rush? They allowed at least 100 yards just once since then. I'm not counting week 18 because they technically gave over. Yeah, they technically gave up over 100 yards, but at the same time, come on. Unless you're Dak Prescott, no one's really talking about that game. Some of that may have had to do with quality of opponent, and I get that. And some of that was game flow, but the Eagles defense did a much better job of being in the right place to get stops. And they have mostly tackled well in the second half. Fournette was able to get solid gains on first downs and convert on third and short situations because of broken tackles. But if the Eagles defense as a whole can tackle better against him, they could probably put themselves in better position to force punts and field goals instead of allowing drives to continue, because the Patriots, because the Buccaneers are just going to simply do or be forced to really throw the ball and not rely on Leonard Fournette to just wear down this defense like they did back in week 6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you mentioned, like coming off of an injury, it's always a wild card, especially for running backs here. So while their weapons are definitely deep, while they do have a next man mentality, they're more beaten up than you think, which makes them more human than you think. So
Yep.
COVID list, it really does go to benefit them right now. So it seems almost like it's, I don't want to say destined, but like it seems like there's more cards than you think that are favoring the Eagles right now. Granted, is Tampa Bay the more experienced team, probably the more all-around talented team? Yeah, but when you look at the outside factors and any given Sunday, any given playoffs, cards are starting to be, I don't want to say dealt, but you're starting to look at your hand and it's like, okay, like this team is very beatable
Wow.
right now, even if they are the defending champs.
And before we go to our game prediction, one last thing on this defensive line. Like Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave got to show up. I mean, the Buccaneers have one of the best offensive lines in football. I mean, the
Agreed.
Eagles have one of the best, but the Buccaneers do too. They have played together for a while, whether it be Donovan Smith, Ryan Jensen at center, Tristan Wirfs at right tackle, Kappa and Marpet, the guards. I mean, this is a very good blue-collar, scrappy offensive line. They're particularly good in the run game, and as we were just talking about, has allowed Leonard Fournette to really have a good year. But if they have a weakness, they do give up pressure up the middle at times in the passing game, and that's why I highlight Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave. Like, Fletcher Cox needs to show up. Mm-hmm. Fletcher Cox needs to show up in this game. If he doesn't, the defense will not be successful. And Javon Hargrave has been better. He has resurged a little bit here in the second half, like the last couple weeks.
But we need weeks 1 through 5 Javon Hargrave right now.
Correct. Like when you look at a quarterback like Brady, he's not going to venture from the pocket, but who has outstanding pocket presence, knows how to make subtle but effective movement away from edge rushers. He's less effective when the pressure is right in his face. Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave, I mean, they are two pieces of a bunch of resources the Eagles have tied into their defensive tackles. Now is when they need to see those investments pay off. If not now, it never will. So this is why this matchup right here, right now, is why you see Howie Roseman for years has built this team from the offensive line and the defensive line. They won Super Bowl 52 because of that defensive front. They need to do it again in this game if they have a chance to move on.
They definitely need to. Games are won in the trenches, and I think that goes double for playoff time. And in the situation where the Eagles focus on building from the line of scrimmage out, this is their time to really shine and go with the strength of their team.
All right, Matt, it's time. Like, obviously, we just laid out everything you need to know about this game, whether it be on the offensive side of the ball or the defensive side of the ball. When you look at this game, and look, nobody's given this Eagles team a chance. They are the true underdogs once again. Do the Eagles have what it takes to go down there into South Florida and upset the defending Super Bowl champions and the GOAT Tom Brady? It almost sounds asinine that I'm asking that, but back in August, I mean, we sat there and said we believe the talent is there to make a run. They've been one of the hottest teams in all of football over the last couple of weeks. Do they have some more magic in them?
The analyst in me, the amount, I've been breaking this down in my head. I don't know how many times since before this show started. Everything, logic about football, wants to say no, but just my gut, looking at the exterior situation, look at what I've seen in this team. I think they can, and I think they will. I'm not saying it's going to be beautiful. I'm not saying it's going to be ideal, but I think that they have the ability to go down there, play 60 good minutes of football, and come away with a stolen win down in Tampa Bay.
I thought about this all week, and last night I did my other show, Sports with a Z and a T, and I predicted the Eagles to win. I do, man. I feel like
There's just something in your gut
this.
that says yes.
I feel like this Eagles team has this Buccaneers team right where they want them. The Bucs have lost two really good weapons on the offensive side of the ball. They're banged up rushing. The Eagles, what they do best is running the football. And sometimes, and I've said it on the show countless times, sometimes your best defense is that rushing attack, making sure that that offense does not see the field. Look, I have a gut with Miles Sanders back, Jordan Howard. If you looked at the weather, it's supposed to be windy, 30 to 40 mile an hour wind gusts, chance of some rain, up to a quarter inch of rain. This just screams sloppy, hard-nosed playoff football, and that usually leans into the run game. And the Eagles have been the best team in the entire league to do it. I have a feeling that, this Buccaneers team struggles against mobile quarterbacks, struggles mightily in the secondary with big shots with Devontae Smith and possibly Dallas Goddard. We highlighted the mismatch there. Call me crazy. I do. I think the Eagles, and I have felt pretty good about this for a couple days now. I think now if they do it, we'll have a different conversation next week against the Packers, but let's enjoy this and let's get there first. The Eagles are going to go beat the Buccaneers come Sunday down in Tampa.
I think so too. We've laid out all the groundwork, we've laid out all the variables. Even with all that I don't know if anything can fully justify the opinion given the way just both teams are laid out, but I just think it's going to happen. I'm confident in it.
Wouldn't that be something? The Eagles take out the defending Super Bowl champions down in Tampa. It would be one hell of a story. This team's going to be fun to talk about. And either way, and I say this to Eagles fans, no matter how this game goes on Sunday, what this team was able to do this year, based off of, all the circumstances of what happened in 2020, Nick Sirianni, the hire, everybody thought it was a terrible hire. Nobody knew what this team was going to be. This team was projected to win 3-4 games at best. They started 2-5, looked like they had no direction. To turn it around, finish 9-8, and make it to the playoffs with the future only being brighter, it is an absolutely marvelous job from top to bottom what this team has done. So with that being said, just play with house money, right? Enjoy this ride, realize that the expectations were not there, and that in the big picture, this Eagles team is light years ahead of where anybody expected them to be.
It really is. And, I feel like we're at a narrative right now, like, a season without a Super Bowl is considered a lost season. This isn't the case for the Eagles, where they're at. Because when you look at where they were predicted to finish and how they even started off and what they became, just getting to the playoffs and the ability to win a playoff game or just play competitive playoff football and advertise and free agency your team and 3 first-round picks, this season's been a win regardless, whether it comes away with a ring or not.
I agree. I absolutely agree with that. And, obviously we hope the Eagles pull it out this weekend, but it's going to be a tall ask, and we will see where it goes. And another reason why this is such a successful year, Matt, is because the Eagles got the last laugh in the Carson Wentz trade. They got the last laugh. Obviously, they have to hit on the pick. But because of the Carson Wentz choke job, straight up choke job, I don't know how you lose to the 2-win Jacksonville Jaguars when the playoffs are on the line. And the fact that Miami missed the playoffs, the Eagles, 2 of their 3 first-round picks are now top 16 picks, 15 and 16 respectively, with Miami and Indianapolis. The Eagles currently own 10 picks this year in total. 3 first rounds offer Howie Roseman a big opportunity to improve Philly's roster, and through multiple avenues too. He can sit and pick at those selections. He can swing a trade for a star player. He could trade back to pick up a first-round pick in the 2023 NFL draft to have insurance if Jalen doesn't pan out next year. But let's be real. the success of Jalen Hurts this year has allowed the flexibility for Howie Roseman to really address needs on the defensive side of the ball. I would love Ahmad Gardner. I would love Ahmad Gardner across Darius Slay. Now, I think Steven Nelson deserves a contract extension, and that could be there, but I think that is definitely a possibility. I would love, a linebacker for God's sakes.
There's a lot of Georgia boys available. Just saying, they won the national championship for a reason.
I was going to say, it kind of feels like maybe Georgia suffocated Alabama's offense with some linebacker play. Just saying, Howie. And, I think the Eagles are going to be in the market for another wide receiver. I mean, it sucks. I think Jameson Williams could have been there. Chris Olave out of Ohio State is a possibility. But, I mean, we have plenty of time to talk about that down the road. My point is the Eagles are set up, obviously, well now. They're in the playoffs. But the future, because of this trade, whether it be the Miami trade that they traded back and got the extra first and still got their guy in Devontae Smith. Now, granted, Miami got Waddle, and he's a stud too. So, it worked out for Miami. But the fact that Howie Roseman is sitting here with 3 first-round picks, you're looking at the Indianapolis Colts. Carson Wentz, all he has to do is beat the Jacksonville Jaguars, lays an egg, and you're sitting there with Jalen Hurts and in the playoffs. Like, well done, Howie Roseman. Well done. Really,
well done, Howie Roseman. And, it is, I don't have anything against Carson Wentz, but it is nice to see, shout out Trevor Lawrence for one, getting the Colts out of the playoffs and giving me a nice little payday off of DraftKings. So it was a good week 18 for me. So really, it does stress the importance now of the Eagles' first round picks. And I don't want to talk too much about the draft yet, but it is something to think about for playoff teams. So, ideally, you have the opportunity to make a playoff run, advertise yourself well in free agency, then plug in some holes, which I'm hoping that, give me at least 1 or 2 of them for Georgia defender, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. Point being, trade worked out pretty well so far, as barring they hit on that pick.
You look at now, think about this year. The Eagles have done this with $34 million going to Carson Wentz, and he's not even on the roster. Next year, that comes off the books.
He's their highest paid player right now. He's the highest paid player.
Yes, he is. And the Colts are now going to be on the books for $28 million. Imagine, and look, it hurts for me to say because I was really a big Carson Wentz fan. I still wanted him to succeed this year. I really did. But if you take Carson at face value right now, these past 2 years, he is not a franchise quarterback that should be making $28 million a year to choke away a playoff spot. Like, look, and I had this argument. My co-host, my other podcast, is a Colts fan. So obviously he was pretty upset about what had happened on Sunday. And he was like, it's not just Carson Wentz. I felt like I was back in Philly, like defending Carson Wentz. I was seeing it in front of me in another person. It's like, it's not all on Carson Wentz. They don't have a receiver, blah, 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 blah. Like, the point of a franchise quarterback to me is somebody that can elevate the team when the other position groups are not playing well. And Carson Wentz failed to do that against Jacksonville. Like, what else do you need to see? That's why you brought Carson there, and he laid an egg, and now the Eagles are off the hooks of it.
Well, Jacksonville fans were wearing clown masks in the audience. Maybe 10, 15,000 people there.
Jacksonville is the definition of a dumpster fire, and you went down there and couldn't get it done. It just mind-blowing to me. But I think the Eagles, are in a good spot right now, and Jalen Hurts, we've had this conversation for a couple of weeks now. He's bought time. He at least has bought himself next year to prove that he can build off this year and continue to become one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. Like,
absolutely, I agree.
This is where you need to see that leap, though, because if Jalen doesn't have that leap next year, the Eagles might be sitting there looking at options at the quarterback position. But I hope Jalen succeeds. I really do. I've been nothing but impressed with what he's done, especially the second half of the year, and he's really growing into the leader of this football team, which is nice to see, and definitely something that keeps us excited, not only for the playoffs this year, because I think this kid is a true baller, a true gamer, and a true winner. I want to see how far he can take this team and see if they can just ride this wave and see how far it can go before it crashes, but then build on that for next year and years to come.
Yeah, I mean, the kid's only 23 years old right now, just completed his first full season as a starter, and here he is in the playoffs right now. So you definitely want to build off of this right now. He's earned that over drafting, say, a 21 or 22-year-old kid and putting them in here. I mean, not a lot of quarterbacks can get to the playoffs this young.
All the quarterbacks, and you mentioned Jalen's 23, right?
Mhm.
Jalen's 23 years old. All the at least all the top tier quarterbacks, there might be some younger ones, but the top 5 or 6 rated quarterbacks, whether it be Pickett, Howell, Desmond Ridder, Pickett, they're all 24 or 23 years old. So the Eagles are sitting there with a quarterback that's the same age as all the quarterbacks that are in this draft class right now. I mean, Jalen, and it's hard to believe because Jalen was he was a 4 or 5 year player in college. I mean, he was at Alabama, then he went to Oklahoma. This kid is just a true baller. He's learned so much, whether it be from Saban, whether it be from Lincoln Riley, whether it be from Doug and now Sirianni. He's learned so much and has seen so much of the game of football way past a lot of these younger quarterbacks would have at this point in their careers. And I think that's starting to show, and that's starting to really help him.
It really does. So, it's just an overall perfect situation for Jalen Hurts because I think he knew that his job was in a, not necessarily jeopardy, but, the Eagles were starting to look at other potential options.
Well, I'm sure he heard, the Eagles, Deshaun Watson.
The rumors and all that stuff, whether he wants to play it down, he heard it in his head. He heard it. And, I think he played he's in the perfect situation right now where no one in this draft class right now is exactly a sexy pick, except for maybe Corral, who's going to be gone before the Eagles' first pick.
And that's just it. Like, some people like Corral, some people like Pickett. Apparently, Pickett's like skyrocketing.
I don't see Pickett. I like Corral, but I think Corral's the only one who I think I could see as a potential slam dunk pick. But again, not talking about the draft right now. Point is, Jalen Hurts did what he was supposed to do. He went out, played well, got this team to the playoffs. Huge added bonus, by the way, and bought himself an extra year, and that's what matters.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens on Sunday. Thank you for listening to this episode. That'll do it for this week's Made for Philly. The Eagles play this Sunday, 1 o'clock down in Tampa. Keep it locked into at Made for Philly, as well as my and Matt's Twitter accounts at ZBryce21 and Matt__Minton. We will keep you locked in on everything you need to know Birds related as they head down to Tampa to face the Buccaneers in Super Wild Card Weekend. And of course, you can listen to this and every episode of Made for Philly right here on YouTube. You could go to Spotify. Make sure to rate on Spotify at the top left-hand corner where the star is. All you have to simply do is click it, rate us, give us your feedback. Everything that you give back to us is appreciated and makes us show better and better each and every week. And then, of course, you can also find us on Apple Podcasts as well. Share with your friends, share on social media, get the word out. Obviously, the playoffs are here, and there's no better place to be than Made for Philly when it comes Birds playoff time. For Matt, I am Bryce. This was Made for Philly, presented by Godzilla Media. Fly, Eagles, fly. Go Birds. Let's go get this thing. And we will see you next week when we hopefully preview the Eagles and the Packers. Go Birds.
Go Birds, baby.